Alright, so the next thing we want to do is make sure that the deformation bones are deformation bones and the root bone is not a deformation bone. And because we've organized things quite nicely over here, let's first select the root bone over here, and we're going to click on the bone properties, and we're going to make sure that this is not selected so that it doesn't deform. Then we're going to click over here, hide the root, and for the deformation bones, bone selected, I'm going to press, I'm going to have to go to edit, pose mode, Control Shift C. Oh, not yet, sorry. Go back to edit mode. Shift W and then type in, click on deform. Then click over here and change toggle to enabled. So now the deformation bones are deformation bones and the root bones are root bones. Now keep in mind I'm in edit mode when I did that. Ignore pose mode for now, we'll get into that shortly. The next step is we're going to be messing with the naming convention here, but we currently don't have the root bone selected, so I'm going to select all these bones over here. Hold on, select the bones tab to go into edit mode, and with all the bones selected I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, right click, and I'm going to click over here, and these are going to be your TRT, which are known as your target bones, and with those bones selected I'm going to click over here. The problem you have now is you've got deformation bones with this naming convention. Look at stomach, def space dash space stomach space bone, and we go over here to the TRT bones. It's called def space dash space stomach space bone .001. That's no good. We probably want to change the initial first acronym from def to TRT, and we probably want to get rid of the .001, which we will do by using the rename column over here. And the first thing you want to do in the target section, make sure, you won't get this right if you don't do this, make sure you select bone. Once you've selected bone and you've got everything selected, we are currently in edit mode. I'm going to type in DEF. It's case sensitive, so I'm making sure it's caps here. I'm just making sure it matches perfect. I'm not trying to create any problems. And then I'm going to type in TRT for target bone. And I'm going to press, if you look at all these defs, when I press this, it's going to change. There we go, they're all TRT. Now the next problem we have is we got .001, and I want to replace .001 with nothing. So nothing is there. Every time it sees .001, it will just replace it with nothing. Search and replace, perfect. And just like that, everything is done. We don't have to go to each individual bone and retype it. So that's great. And now we can move on to the next step. Right, so the next step is we want to go back to our bone layer, make sure that all the bone layers are enabled, and we can also hide empty layers so we only see these three, because that's all we're going to be working with. And alright, with everything selected in object mode, we've got the every bone selected. We can go into edit mode, and we're going to right click on this and we can click symmetrize. And because we used the .l naming convention, when we press that, automatically creates the other leg and arm, and that saves us a ton of time, and it does it perfectly. And we look at the naming convention, it is flawless because we were very careful with that to begin with. Alright, so now that we've got that, let me explain to you the difference between a deformation bone and a target bone. So a deformation bone, essentially, you could maybe just in Blender, you could just use the deformation bone and that might be enough. But when you want to export this to Unreal or many other applications, the correct way to do it is to have a deformation bone to deform your object, to manipulate it. And then separately to that, you need a controller for that. And the TRT, the target bone, is how you deform that specific action, if that makes sense. Hopefully that helps. And obviously the root bone is just the reference point to make sure that the world axis is the same as the local axis, so that we don't run into more problems down the road. Alright, so now that we've got that basic understanding done, we need to make sure that the target bone can influence the deformation bone. Right, so let's get to it. So now that we are in edit mode, let's change to pose mode. And when I click over here on this bone here, okay, cool. So when I click on this bone here, it says TRT head bone. I shift, I click again, holding in shift, now it says def head bone. So you select the TRT bone, and then you select the def bone. And once you've done that, in pose mode, you have to be in pose mode, you press Control Shift C, copy transforms. And that's how you create the lever. So now the head is done. Now essentially we have to do this to everyone. So we click over here, TRT, holding shift, click again, def, Control Shift C, copy transforms. Be very careful with this, take your time, don't rush it. And we just have to take it all the way down. Control Shift C, copy transforms. Control Shift. The thing is, this is such a delicate part of the process. Before you can animate, you need to make sure the rig is done correct. So be patient with yourself, take your time. There's no rush to this. You don't want to mess this up because you'll have to start over. So rather take twice as long so you don't have to do it 5 times over. Copy transform. Copy transform. Brilliant. And now we'll do the other leg. Hold on, please select. Shift select. Hold on, what's going on? Numpad 1. Select. Deformation bone. Is this missing a bone? I think it is because, okay, well, we'll have to get back to that, which means this would be missing a bone. Now, if you did this the wrong way around, if you tried to move this, it would automatically break. That's why we did it the order we did. So if you made the mistake of making the head bone go inward, you'd be experiencing a lot of headache right now. Right, so it looks like all those sides don't have it. So let's just carry on with this. Control Shift C, copy transform. Copy transform. Copy transform. Copy transform. Numpad 7. Copy transform. 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 Also, what I probably want to do to make this a little bit, okay, never mind. Let's just carry on. Copy transform. Copy transform. Copy transform. Copy transform. Okay, here we go. Copy transform. Okay, the fingers are done. The arm is done. The head to the feet are done. It's just this other side. And I believe that we should have a deformation bone there. So what I'll do is I'll just turn off the TRT and root bone. And I'll select all of this in edit mode quickly. Right click on it, symmetrize, because we need a deformation bone as well. Tab to go into object mode. We can reveal the TRT bone again. Go back to pose mode. copy transform. By the way, I'm pressing Control Shift C the whole time. I hope I said that in the beginning. Control Shift C, copy transform. Control Shift C, copy transform. Control Z. Hold on. There we go. Copy transform. Copy transform. Numpad 7. Obviously, another way to tell copy transform. Obviously, you can always read the bones of the names and stuff. But I've done this enough times to know that it's based on the layer order. I'm not going to run into any issues. Copy transform. 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 Now if you missed anything, the animation is going to break and not be great. So it's just important to be extra careful. Maybe have a better system than mine to make sure you don't miss any bones. I'm kind of just going end to end. Control Shift C, copy transform. Copy transform. Now you can see why this pays quite well in the industry, and not a lot of people want to do this, because a big chunk of the work is just, you know, rigging new characters, and then obviously an even bigger chunk is the animation. But if you don't have a good rig, any animation you do is going to be pointless. So your rigging is the fundamental part of any animation. Alright, so I think everything is done now, and if we go into edit mode and we remove the TRT, let's go back to pose mode quickly. So now we'll know if we did it correct in pose mode if we just have the def turned on, if everything is green. If there's something that isn't green, it means you missed the copy transform on a specific thing. So all these deformation bones are set, but you can't move them because their trigger is the other layer of bones. Alright, we're finally getting to a place where we might be able to animate soon, which is wonderful. Alright, so let's get into the next step. Alright, there's one more thing we need to do before we connect this to the mesh. I almost forgot it, but I've got my own little checklist to make sure I don't. To make sure we don't run into any problems. So currently we've set the deformation bone earlier as a deformation bone, and we made sure that the root bone is not a deformation bone. But we need to make sure that the target bone is also not a deformation bone. So we're going to select the target bone, go into edit mode. With all the target bones selected, we are going to press Control, is it Shift W? Shift W. I'm going to click Deform, and we're going to make sure it's disabled. And we can see over here, we'll also tick that off for that. And in fact, you can essentially turn on the root bone and the target bone. Shift W, deform, disable, make sure it's disabled. Then you can turn on the deform bone, Shift W, deform, enabled with a tick on. And now you know that the deformation bone is the deformation bone and all the other bones are not deformation bones. One is the root bone to make sure that we don't have problems with importing and exporting into different files because the local origin matches the world origin. Then we've got the deformation bone for deforming the object, and then we've got the target bone to manipulate the deformation. Cool. So now we can press tab to go into object mode, and we can select the mesh, shift select the armature, and the armature would be the light orange and the mesh would be the dark orange if you did this correctly. And now we can press Control P, and once you've pressed Control P, You could choose envelope weights and stuff, which is okay, but you're going to be, in this specific example, you're going to be spending more time trying to fix things than anything else. So what I recommend you do in this example, and we'll get into the other stuff in later tutorials if there's enough interest in this, select with empty groups. And if you did this correctly, deselect everything, select the mesh, click on vertex group, here we go. You'll have this, and there's no weights assigned. It's just all your bones labeled. So we're going to scroll to the very top, and this part is a bit laborious, but you know, you've got to do it, so let's do it. So we click on the hip bone here, and I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to press L on this and L on this, and this is going to be my hip, and then I'm going to click assign with a weight of 1, and to make sure it works, I press deselect, select, deselect. It's working. Check every single one. You do not want to mess this part up. And next thing is the spine. Right, so it's selected its own spine already. So when this happens, I don't know if this is some sort of glitch, what I do is I just delete everything, because I'm not supposed to see this, which is a little bit frustrating when it does this. I don't want any mix-and-morph characters, so I'm just deleting absolutely everything here. Alright, now I'm going to press tab to go into object mode, select the mesh, shift, select the armature, control P with empty groups, click. Select the mesh. Now if I see any mix and morph, automatically I'm deleting. It should all be gone now. It should be clean. Right, let's start off with the hip bone. Press tab to go into edit mode. Press L for all linked parts, L for all linked parts, and now I'm going to click assign. And I'm going to press deselect, select, deselect. It's working. And I'm going to click stomach, and I'm going to make this point the stomach over here, and click assign, deselect, select, deselect. It's working. I'm going to click chest, and press L, and I'm going to press assign, deselect, select, deselect. Working. I know it's laborious to do all these checks, but trust me, it's so easy to make a mistake. Neck, press L, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Head, L, assign, deselect, select, deselect. And shoulder bone. This is where it gets a bit tricky. I said this bone would be a little bit more complicated. So what we want to do here is, normally you'd weight paint. In this case, I'm just going to do this and select a bunch of the shoulder, hold and shift. And that should be enough in the front. And let's go to the back quickly and do the same over here. There we go. Back. And that's how I get this menu, if you're wondering. It's a squiggly line next to 1 and escape in the top left corner of your keyboard. And I chose back, obviously. Alright, so for the back, I think this should be far enough. Front. Okay, so that's all done, which I'm quite happy with. Shoulder bone, assign. Deselect, select, deselect. Now we go to the arm bone, which is Now you don't want to miss any bones in this process, so just follow along, because if you miss something and you're trying to animate, you're going to see glitches. So the arm bone is this. Press assign, deselect, select, deselect. Forearm. I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. Hand bone. Look, it's the fingers now. That's often where a lot of people make mistakes when they start out. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Numpad 7, the top of the graphic view. Now we've done the hand. Now we're doing the pinky finger bone, which we know is this, because we just made it. Click assign, deselect, select, deselect. These fingers here, pinky bone 2, assign, deselect, select, deselect. These fingers here. Obviously I'm just pressing L the whole time for the link parts thing. I think you should know by now. And click assign. Oh, I've made a mistake. I assigned it to bone 2. This is bone 3. So now when I say deselect, select, it's going to be the whole thing. So I have to click remove. It's good that I actually made this mistake to show you how to fix it. I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. It's working. Bone 3. I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect, and now we go to the ring finger. And once again, I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. I'll select bone 2, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Bone 3, I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. Middle finger. Now you can see there's a lot more to the rigging process than what meets the eye, just to get something rigged properly. We've got the middle finger here, and we're going to press L, assign, deselect, select, deselect. L, bone 2, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Bone 3, L, assign, deselect, select, deselect. And now we go to this one over here. I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. This is the last boring part of the process, I feel. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. Thumb. I'll assign, deselect, select, deselect. I'll shift, well, I can just let me select the correct stuff. Hover over this, type in shift L to remove that. And this would be bone 2, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Just to make sure I did that. And then I'm going to press L, thumb 3, assign, deselect, select, deselect. And now we're finally jumping onto the right shoulder. There we go. This nice and neat, and I guess we want this as well, something like this. You can make it match perfectly to the other side if you so choose, but I'm okay with something like that. Should be good enough for what I'm trying to do. And click shoulder bone, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Arm bone. Okay. Just glad your hands are the most laborious part. So once it's done, Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Okay, forearm. L, assign, deselect, select, deselect. L, hand, assign, deselect, select, deselect. And now we press numpad 7 for top orthographic view, and we're going to start with the hand. The pinky is the first one. Select that. And we're going to click. And we have to just make sure all the fingers are here. Pinky 1. So we're going to press assign, deselect, select, deselect. Pinky 2. If you're missing a pinky, you messed up somewhere. Trust me, it's happened more than once to me. So that's why I'm so careful with these steps. I'm going to click assign, deselect, select, deselect. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Ring finger 1, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Ring finger bone 2, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Ring finger bone 3, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Middle finger bone 1. Okay. Middle finger bone 1 is L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Middle finger bone 2, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Middle finger bone 3, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Pointing finger, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Pointing finger bone 2, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. L. Bone 3, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Finally jumping onto the thumbs, L. Please don't skip any mesh parts. You'll run into so many problems. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Bone 2. You have to rig the whole thing here. You can't do a partial rig and miss these balls, for example, because they'll stand out when you try and animate. And click assign, deselect, select, deselect. Thumb part 3 for the right, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. And now we finally, numpad 1, done the hands. We're finally onto the top leg, which is these two parts here. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Cool. Bottom leg, left, L. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. Foot, don't forget that part there and that part there. Click assign, deselect, select, deselect. And a lot of people forget this, so don't forget this, the toe part, which is that and that. Assign, deselect, select, deselect. And now we can jump onto the other side. This is fun and easy compared to the hands, which is just so time consuming. Click assign, deselect, select, deselect. Bottom leg, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Foot bone, assign, deselect, select, deselect. Toes, assign, deselect, select, deselect. There we go. So now we got everything working together. So we've connected our, let's just quickly do a quick run through of what we've done so far. So I'm going to press tab to go into object mode. I'm going to select the rig. We've connected we've matched our deformation bones to the body as a skeleton. We've connected our target bones to our deformation bones so we can manipulate the deformation. We also have a root bone to make sure it's on the correct axis. The local axis matches the world axis. And now we've connected various parts of the mesh to various parts of the bone, which means we can finally go into pose mode. But you can't pose with the deformation bones, these green bones. You have to turn on the TRT bones and turn off those bones. And now, if you did everything correct, you should be able to move things quite nicely. Now, the reason why this part breaks, that's actually a good question. I'll have to, has to do with the head part here, because it's not, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, the point is, if we press this and we move this like this, we can move this quite nicely in any direction we like on that specific axis. The head bone is where the axis lines are, and that's where things move and rotate from. So as long as you don't press G to try and pull it out, over here you can pull this out because this is not connected directly into anything. So it can technically be moved out, but it will still rotate on that specific axis, which is great. And you can pose the body in any shape you like. And we're pretty much done with this tutorial. You can also, for example, rotate this like in any way you like, but you can also rotate this Z on the X-axis to move the hands from side to side if you like. But let's quickly just press numpad 7 and let's give some random pose. Let's rotate this in like this. Let's select this, numpad. Select this, move this in. Select this, numpad 3. And we'll go over animations in a future video. I'm just trying to show you that the animation works perfectly and there's no broken bits. That's what I'm kind of looking for now. So if any toes go missing or any parts of the leg go missing, I would try and fix it now. There we go. Move it to the side. And what we could do is just turn all of this off so we can see how the pose looks. And what we could do, just to create a quick scene, let's go out of pose mode, object mode. I'm just going to hide that, and there you have it. We've created a unique pose, I guess, but we'll get into more into the animation at a future video. But we've created a professional rig for a fairly simple humanoid character. If you made it this far, please don't forget to share this video and like and subscribe. I mean, it took I know it was one session, but it took a long time to not skip anything like this. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Ooh, I almost forgot. If we look at the character quickly, I've discovered one small glitch through moving the animation. So when we rotated this arm here, we can see that this fell off. And I can tell you why it fell off. It's because it broke. It's not connected. So we're going to quickly fix that. So let's just move this here. So it's this piece here. There might be a duplicate. It seems to be a duplicate. So in this case, we don't have to worry too much. We can just select tab, or actually pose mode. Let's just quickly move this. Okay, that's fine the way it is. I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to select the mesh tab to go into edit mode. So I'll just select this, press L, H to hide, press L over here to select this and delete. It just seems to be a duplicate from the Machima mesh. So we did everything perfect, everything's fine. But if you ran into that and you saw that, Alt H to bring that back, it's because this mesh, when they built it, that was one of the flaws they had in their model that they made. And now we've hidden it. Everything should be fine. So now when we go back to select the armature tab, pose mode, select this, rotate it, everything should be hunky-dory. Was the same mistake made yet? No, only on one side. But yeah, I think you get it. Cool. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one. Once again, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Cool.